Hello farmers and aspiring farmers, thank you for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030, and today we are going to be looking at cabbages production during the summer cropping season right here in Zimbabwe. You would find that generally in summer, with the coming in of the rains, we do have insect pests and diseases that are a menace and can even end up eating into our profits as farmers. And as such, we want to look at cabbages production during the summer cropping season, aligning it probably maybe from August, September, October into December. And to discuss this and more, I've taken the liberty of inviting Wendy Matashu Madzura. She is an agronomist working with various farmers who are either into food crops or vegetables production. Wendy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza. How are you?
I'm okay, Wendy. As we get into our discussion, Wendy, we are experiencing cabbages that are being harvested and being sent to the market in this very instance. Can you maybe talk to us in terms of the periods up to maturity, probably when was it established and so forth, making sure that we also talk about it, including the fact that we are in summer.
Thank you for bringing that very important Thank you for bringing out that very important element of producing brassicas, including the cabbages in summer, and the fact that there are problematic diseases and insect pests associated with it. So these cabbages that we are seeing that are currently being harvested and being loaded and going off to the market were established end of July, early August. So as we can see now, they are at their maturity days and we are already going to the market. So the important thing with cabbages is understanding that cabbages and the family of cabbages, which are the brassicas, are one of the most forgiving families of crops that we have. Why? Because you can establish them throughout the year. They are not sensitive to frost, which is to say even in winter, this is a crop that can also be established during the winter period. But then again, if it's one of the favorable crops that can be established in winter, it means everyone who is running away from the frost sensitive crops like your tomato, like your cucumbers, like your peppers, will also be establishing the cabbages, which is to say the cabbages that are produced during the winter period are most likely to fetch less if they're going to be sold around August, around September, because everyone will have a lot of cabbages and they will be flooding the market. But right now, when some people established in the winter period, towards the end of winter, when others were selling, if others are selling and you are establishing, you are most likely to get a favorable price on the market when you sell as well your cabbages. So it's a crop that you can also consider. They are consumed throughout the year. They are consumed at gatherings, happy gatherings, sad gatherings. You find that cabbages are common. So they are a crop that you can also consider having, but it's also good for you to have them in different crop stages so that you can be selling for a wider window.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for such a detailed description of what cabbages are in their production during all the various seasons that we have as a country. When you would find that generally in every cropping venture, you need to have your fertilizer application systems or regimen in place. This is a healthy looking cabbage. It doesn't look stuffed. It looks fresh and it looks very attractive to the eye. In terms of fertilizers that are used in cabbage production, what are those and what could you maybe highlight in terms of those that are using synthetic fertilizers or even those who are into organic manure usage when it comes to producing cabbages?
So in any cropping venture like you highlighted, we are now pushing for an integrated approach where we are talking about the use of both the organic and inorganic fertilizers, which are the synthetics ones that we're talking about. So it's very important for our farmers to understand that if we bring a marriage between the conventional ways of doing things and the ways that are going to add value to the business, it will also improve on the return per dollar invested. So the synthetic fertilizers are good in the sense that they have calibrated rates of nutrition constitutions that you can really take advantage of in terms of growing your crop. Looking at the cabbages, for example, in the seed bed, you can establish your cabbage using your compound S fertilizer or your compound C. But with fertilizers, our farmers should be guided by the nutrient constitution which is there. If it's your compound C, is it 5, 15, 12, or what are the macro elements that are there in the fertilizer, which will help you to get the much needed value from your particular fertilizer that you're going to be establishing. Then when you're looking at your transplanting, or some farmers want to plant in situ, where they are putting their seeds directly into the ground where the cabbage is going to be growing, you can still use your compound C or vegetable blend. These fertilizers are SOP based, they are not MOP based. Okay. So they are recommended in horticulture, which includes your cabbage production. But then when you come to around 3 weeks, 4 weeks, when your crop is getting into the vegetative stage, again you need to start thinking about your nutrition source and the element that is important at that time, where your nitrogen becomes important. So you need to come in with your ammonium nitrate. We don't recommend the use of too much ammonium nitrate, which is why if you have organic manure, you can also incorporate it when you're doing your fertilizer applications, because it also then adds value to the crop, and it also reduces that sourness that comes with over application of ammonium in a leafy vegetable like your cabbage, like your rep, like your other vegetables which are leafy in the brassica family. So it's very important for you to also complement your standard fertilizers, your compounds, your blends with your inorganic fertilizer. But again, the inorganic with your organic fertilizer. The organic fertilizer then brings in its challenges like insect pest pressure, disease pressure. We spoke about the importance of knowing the problematic diseases that you are going to face in a particular crop. So looking at your cabbage, you might face the cutworms at transplanting. You might face also the diamond back moth larvae, which is also a worm, the green worm that burrows into the cabbage. So it's important for you to control against that. But we'll speak about it further as we discuss the importance of insect pest management in cabbages.
On that note, we have come to the end of the first segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in terms of cabbage production during the summer cropping season. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. And today we are going to be looking at cabbages production during the summer cropping season right here in Zimbabwe. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772 807 506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us on our YouTube channel, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's at Agribusiness 110. Now, Wendy, we are harvesting our cabbages in this field that we are standing in, but at the same time, there is something that is of that is interesting. You can see that as we are harvesting, the field is weed free.
It is.
There are no weeds that we can say that you can point and say there is a weed somewhere. In terms of weed management in cabbages production, what are we looking at? I understand that cabbages is a water-loving crop, but at the same time, water application comes with weeds. You also need to manage your weeds. In terms of weed control or weed management, what are we talking about? And those weeds, their names that are menace in cabbage production.
Thank you for bringing that up. Weeds are a huge menace in any cropping venture, Wadza, whereby you find that weeds can result in a yield loss of from 50 to 100%, where in some instances a farmer might fail to even harvest anything because the weeds know that they are growing where they are not wanted. So they are going to capitalize in terms of the nutrition and the moisture which is also going to be applied by the crop. But the other thing that is also pertinent is the fact that these particular cabbages were established on drip irrigation, and some farmers now are taking heed of the importance of having beds, the 1 meter or 1.5 meter beds, wide beds, which are being established by our farmers. This also helps you in also managing the weeds which are between the rows, where you can come in on a regular basis with manual weeding depending on the size of the field which you are also going to be establishing. So since we talk about intensive small scale production, even on the centers of the field you can come in and manually weed. But we find that with the drip lines, particularly on the planting station, you might find that there are some weeds that might also want to grow in competition with the particular crop in question. So it's important for you to come in with the correct herbicides.
Okay.
Herbicides are encouraged in horticulture, yes, but we also need to be guided by the weed spectrum, which is the type of weeds, whereby if they are grasses, like your couch grass, your runner grass, your rapoko grass, you come in with the appropriate product. If they are broad leaves, like your blackjack, like any other broadleaf weeds that you can get, your portulaca or all the other wider ranges of broadleaf weeds, that way maybe there might be a slight challenge in brassica production because the options of herbicides for broadleaf weeds are limited. But there is one particular product that can work, which is your Basagran or Bentazone. Some farmers are using it successfully, but on that, farmers should also knock regularly on the doors of experts, agrochemical experts, to find out if there are new technologies that are available that can safeguard their backs from them over weeding manually.
Coming with hand
manual weeding is very tedious and painful. So if there are options that are continuously being released on the market. How else would you know if you are not in constant communication with the specialists who are doing such? So it's important. Yes, weeds are a menace, so you need to be on top of the situation in managing them.
At this point in time, Wendy, I want us to look at insect pests and diseases that are a menace in cabbages production during the summer cropping season where we receive rainfalls as a country.
So the diamond backmoth larva is a huge menace, Waza, but our farmers can curb this problem by understanding that agrochemicals have different modes of action. So you don't want to also just put all your eggs in one basket. If you heard your neighbor saying, I used this particular product, then you go and buy liters and liters of that product. Every week you're applying that product. You are also promoting the development of resistance in that particular insect pest. So if you buy your agrochemicals, understand that they come with different active ingredients which are written underneath the triangle of each product. All agrochemicals sold in Zimbabwe, Waza, they have a triangle on them, which has, the shade of toxicity which is in it, which is from the amber right through to the green. But right under the triangle, that's where you find the active ingredient name. So when you're buying, make sure that you are not buying the trade name, which might be different, but the active ingredient remaining the same. So you want different products with different modes of action, alternating them. And when you are spraying, knowing that brassicas and leafy vegetables are consumed on a regular basis, make sure that you observe the post-harvest interval, which is stated on the particular product. You don't want to end up giving people leafy vegetables that have been applied a product like Temic, which was banned, a product like Benomil, a product like monocrotophos, methamidophosph, which were banned. So we want to make sure that we are also conscious of what we are doing. We need to be environmentally friendly and also health conscious, bearing in mind that these agrochemicals might have some side effects to the consumer. So you also want to be ethical in your code of conduct, in the way you're doing your business. So it's very, very important that we emphasize the importance of that. So in summer, you are going to face a lot of diseases, a lot of insect pests, particularly a disease which is called black rot, which you see that on the cabbage, on a fully formed cabbage or a cabbage that is still forming. It might have some yellowing on the leaves. We are not seeing that here because this was well
very
managed.
Clean. Yes.
So it's very important for our farmers to take note of that black rot. But it's also because it's a bacterial disease. You need to make sure that when it's raining, you avoid the cabbage having to sit directly in a waterlogged field. You need drainage. So you need to put your cabbages on raised beds so that at least there's drainage, the water is washing off and it's going away. And you also need to buy varieties that are a bit tolerant to that particular black rot, which might be a menace during this summer season.
Now, Wendy, as we round off this segment, I want us to touch briefly on issues surrounding management of the cabbage in terms of maybe the next crop that you can put maybe next to your cabbages. In tobacco production, we are always given advice and cautioned of producing tomatoes or potatoes in the same area with your tobacco. When it comes to cabbages, is it the same case? Do you have to be very alert when it comes to the surrounding crops that you might put in? Or as a farmer, you do have the luxury or the advantage that you can have your cabbages, you can have your cauliflower, you can have your broccoli, you can have your tomatoes. What is it like as we close in a snippet?
So it's very important for a farmer to have a clear-cut rotation plan with the understanding of the family of crop in which they are growing. So for example, we spoke about the brassica family, which is an umbrella term, which encompasses your cabbage, it encompasses your cauliflower, your broccoli, your leafy vegetables where your kovo, rugare, rape are also going to be found. So we don't encourage you to have crops in the same families side by side because the likelihood of them sharing similar diseases and insect pests are very high. So it's important for you, if you're going to be establishing your cabbages, then on the next field have a root crop like your carrots. Then on the next field have a solanaceous crop like your tomato. Then you bring in your cauliflower or your broccoli after a couple of meters so that the incidence of transfer of insect pests and diseases is also reduced. So it also boils down to a farmer understanding the families and groups in which the cabbages or the crops that they have established will be found so that they make informed decision. Even in terms of rotation, you need to also say after your cabbage, yes, your cabbage is giving you money, but if you do monocropping of that cabbage over and over again, it means you are promoting a build-up of problematic diseases, insect pests, and even weeds, which have not been controlled by the way of control or chemical which you have been applying because it's one crop. So you need to break the cycle. If it's lettuce, If it's cabbage, then when you come in, you need to introduce maybe a cucurbit. Is it a butternut? Is it a watermelon? Something different. Or even bring in sweet corn. But you also need to have a market for it. We don't want our farmers to bring in crops that they don't have markets for. For instance, at some point, one farmer had that, those Brussels sprouts, which is a niche vegetable. A small little cabbage, for a niche market. So one farmer had that, my Brussels sprouts are kubadara. My Brussels sprouts are kubadara. They are giving a lot of money. Then they went and established a hectare of Brussels sprouts, which are only the size of my palm. So when they went to the market now to try and sell, everyone was saying, what is that? We cannot buy that cabbages. Because he did not have a secure market secured already for him to establish that niche crop. So it's important for you to understand there's red cabbage, but if you establish it without a market, you'll be found wanting. You'll feed it to cattle, and you don't want to do that
stuck with
because
your product.
This is a business.
Yes. Thank you so much, Wendy. Speaking of markets, that is where we are headed in the third and final segment. We are going to be looking at cabbage markets and also market expectations in line with our production mechanisms and strategies. On that note, we've come to the end of the second segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. You are watching Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Today we are looking at cabbages production during the summer cropping season, where as a country we receive the majority of our rainfall. This is where we establish even our field crops and also some horticultural crops. Now, Wendy, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Wadza.
Looking at the market environment of cabbages, what are we looking at? What does the market expect in terms of maybe the size or maybe the quantities of cabbages, and even market analysis? If a farmer wants to embark on a market analysis, what would you recommend as the best approach in terms of looking at what the market might want or expect from his product?
In terms of market analysis, it should be the first port of call for every farmer before they venture into any crop, particularly looking at horticulture. Because one of the things that is associated with horticulture is the perishability. These crops are very perishable and they are bulky. If you look at your cabbages, for example, look at this truck. We can count the number of cabbages there, but it's already almost full. But it's because of the nature of the produce, which is bulky and very leafy. So a farmer needs to understand the nature of their produce first, and then they need to understand the perishability, the window, the selling window that they have of that particular crop. And then the market comes into play, like you're saying. So you need to do your market research. So market research should not be limited. You should not only think outside the box. You need to eliminate the box completely. It should not even exist. Think of any way where cabbage can be consumed, whereby now we are talking about boarding schools. Yes, the supermarkets are the market of preference, where you know that maybe you're going to be selling, you'll be seeing your produce on a regular basis when you walk in, showing your friends that this is from my farm, and you would want to sell at the supermarket. You would want to sell at the open market, where you know that is going in bulk. But you even need to think of the hospitals, think of the boarding schools, think of the prisons, think of all the places where food is going to be consumed, and anywhere where you find people, their consumption will be. So there are no excuses to say I'm out of markets, but you need to do the research first before you establish any crop, so that you know that once the crop is ready, you won't be starting to look for markets when the crop is at maturity, and then it splits and bolts in the field and you are not able to sell it. So market research is very, very important for our farmers to do.
Wendy, as we close this segment, I want you to touch briefly and highlight the importance of using conservative figures when it comes to cabbage production. Tunema instances where a farmer says, ndakarima mundu wangu ma cabbage, mune ma cabbage 30,000. Saka one cabbage inenge shita $1, meaning dine 30,000. But that is not the case. There is a great variance between what's on paper and what happens in the field on the ground. Can you talk to such farmers? Kune vamu vakatodzwa kuti ukaita makabeji ako 30,000 uchimatengesa $1 even uka $1 for 2 unenge uri kuma 15,000. What is it like? Your sentiments, your word of advice as we close.
Wadza, nyaya inoitika ndeyekuti varimi vedu vanoda kuita inonzi desk research. Vakagara vachibaya vachinyora svomo, vakagara pabepa nepeni vachicalculator. Umwe akachizoti iye inini ndikarima makabeji angu 2 hectares. sekureva kwawaita ari 33,000 pahekta imwe chete. Ndochiwana inini ma 66,000 macabbage angu. Ndatowana ndikatengesa dola rimwe chete ndatove ne 66,000. Ndakutonotenga DD6 yangu nekubhadhara mutero. Handizika. Saka ndinoda kuzvitenda zvikuru wauya nenyaya yakanaka yekuti varimi vedu vanokurudzirwa kuti vanofanira kuita research iri authentic, research iri practical. Mumunda zvinhu hazvibudi 100% dzimweni dzenguva. Zvakanaka kuisa buffer kana kuti percentage loss. Nekuda kwokuti hongu wadyara 33,000 kokana pa 33,000 tikaisa 3 to 5% wosara une 27,000. Asara ari 27,000 kudaro diamond behemoth youya wosara ne 25,000. Handitika wochidzoka yosara kana ne 22,000. Pakutengeswa paya musika unononoka kuvhurika. Vanouya vanotanga vachidomaka vari kuno iro ndorida iro handiride iro ndorida vachinongedzera mamwe osara obva padhora oenda pa 75 cents oenda pa 50 cents unopedzisira kutengesa dollar for 3 nekuda kwokusiyana kwema market forces. So it's very, very important for us to make a conservative approach in terms of our figures. Yes, we want to be ambitious when we are getting into any venture because it's a business. But if you are over ambitious, you are shooting yourself in the foot because you end up being discouraged at the end of the day when you don't realize those supernormal profits. You need to be patient. Farming is a patience game. Farming is a game of hope. Farming is a profession where you need to put in the work consistently so that you get the results. So yes, sometimes you hit the jackpot, it's a lotto, and then you win. But it's not always the case. So you need to be conservative so that you avoid being hit by a stroke or having a high BP, high blood pressure, because the results are not what you had put down on paper.
Thank you so much, Wendy. We're going to cross over and listen to one of the people who have come to buy their cabbages from this place. Stay tuned. Pari zvino tichipetera chirongwa ndina vakandeya pano bhaya auya kuzotenga macabbages pano paari kutengeswa. Vakandeya ndinokuchingamidzai pachirongwa.
Tinofara zvikuru.
Yes, imimi sabhaya pamauya kuzotenga macabbage aya ndikuona matozadza rori UD. Ndezvipi zvamunenge muchitarisa uye ndezvipi zvakaita kuti imimi munzwe kuda kuuya kuzotenga macabbage apano? Vari kurima macabbage vakawanda. Vamwe vanotomhanya mhanya vachitsvaga musika asi imi matoya netransport yenyu mega kutoya pafamu kuti muzotenga mega. Ndezvipi zvamunenge muchitarisa pacabbage ramuri kuhodha?
Chatinotarisira pamurimi kana arima sezvizvi. Tasa zvinhu zvakarubudisa zvakagora rakaita sei. Ari kuisa mishonga, ari kuisa mafertilizer, angava anoisa manyowa. Ndozvimwe zvatinotarisa nekufirita kwake anobudisa zvinhu zvake zvakanaka.
Alright. Imimi sabhaya kwamuri kuendawo nawo macabbage aya mahodha kwamuri unotengesawo. Ivo vari kutenga kazhinji muchitaura navo vachitenga. Pane dzimwe nguva dzamunotanga pamwe zvambotaurwa naWendy kuti munotanga cabbage riri $1 rosvika pamwe $4 pamwe $4 Ndezvipi zvavanenge vachitarisa kuti muti aiwa aya ndiye $, aya ndiye $4 aya. Zvinoda vari kutenga vachazonodya, be it vemarestaurant, mudzimba, wemaboarding, ndezvipi zvavanenge vachitarisa?
Chavanotarisa vazhinji makastoma edu anotarisa quality. Kunaka kwechinhu ndokwaanotarisa. Chinoita kuti nditi $, kunaka kwechinhu. Kuti nditi 50 cents, chinhu chinenge chabuda chiri poor quality. Ndozvakutodetermina mutengo.
Alright. Tichivhara ndoda kuti mutaure nevarimi vakatarira chirongwa chedu chinonzi agribusiness. Varimi kune vamwe vari kutorima macabbage vanoshuwiro yekuti mimi vakandeya muzohayiwo zvakare UD, musimudze UD renyu pamba penyu muti ndakwenda kukaroi kune macabbage andakaona. Vane shuwiro yekuzowingwa nemabuyers. Saka ndezvipi zvamungavataurira pakurimwa kwawo kwecabbage, especially munguva yekunaya ino inenge yakawanda zvirwere?
Nguva yekunaya ineyi inotinetsena kuti vazhinji vanoita usimbe hwekufirita kuisa mishonga. Mishonga ndio inobatsira kuti ubuditse gohwo rakanaka. Ukaomera kuburitsa newewo uchawana chinoita uchishoma. Dai vachiburitsa pamari yekutenga mishonga azvinhu zvinoendeka.
Munoendako munosimudza rori muchiendako kunohodha.
Zvakanakisisa kana dai kaita 300 km kana 500 km ndinoenda.
Alright. Tinokutendai zvikuru vakandeya nekuya pachirongwa muchipa chenjedzo kuvarimi vedu vanenge vakatarira.
Totenda zvikuru.
On that note, viewers, we have come to the end of this week's edition. It was a pleasure having you with us today looking at cabbages during the summer cropping season of our country, Zimbabwe. My name is Odzanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's a W Manyore. And the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.